How do you feel about the matchup, Michigan-Alabama?
So for 12 weeks this year, I thought Michigan was the better team than Alabama. And then it just so happens that the one week that I don't feel all that confident in that happens to be their last game. And when you see what Bama was able to do against Georgia, and when you see what Michigan was without Zach Zenter against Iowa, now all of a sudden you're like, whoa, hold on a second. Like that's because if those two versions show up, Bama's going to win. And I would agree with the Bama fan base. Now, if the Michigan that beat Ohio State and the Alabama that struggled with Auburn show up, then Michigan wins the game. And if if the version that beat Penn State on the road of Michigan shows up and the version that lost to Texas shows up, Michigan wins the game. So I think at more times during the season, you could argue or make the argument that Michigan was the better team. It just so happens that the last time we saw them was not one of those cases. I'm leaning Alabama in this game. Okay, I am different than Vegas. I think that the ability of Jalen Milroe to extend plays is something that defense has not seen. Michigan's defense. Now, there's a lot of things Michigan does and does well, and probably they do to a better degree than any of the other teams that Alabama has faced, even Georgia. And I know that people are like bias, but whatever. The aspect that I'm most nervous for, though, isn't even Milroe. It's actually the fact that Michigan has to be able to run the football. It's like it's baked into they don't have a lot of answers in the straight drop back passing game. Now their passing game is really good when it comes off of the run action. That doesn't mean that JJ is not a good player. It's just that that's the way that their offense is built. They ran the ball for under 2 yards a carry against Iowa. That's concerning, So for me, it's more about Zach Zenter, their All-American guard. He's injured. He broke his leg in that Ohio State game. What they looked like against Iowa after that was not something that gives me a lot of confidence. And so for those reasons, I'm leaning towards Alabama.
I'm right about Michigan's depth on the defensive line, though. The defensive line, they run a lot of bodies out more than normal, right?
This is the best defensive line that Alabama will have seen. And that's what I don't think, an Alabama fan can wrap their mind around. Is like, well, no. They're not better than Georgia's defensive line. Yes, they are. And they're deeper. They're not better than Texas's defense. Yes, there's actually multiple Tavondre Sweats on this team. They rotate 5 guys just on the interior that are all 300 pounds and they can all get after it. So the defensive line is the best defensive line that Alabama will have faced, and that's a hands down type of deal.
And that's my concern. That's my concern.
So much better than Texas.
Yes,
because of
Texas is good. Their first 4 is really good, on par. That like the first 4 that roll out there, it's like, oh boy, Texas is just as good as Alabama, maybe, or excuse me, as Michigan, maybe a hair better. The difference is that Michigan literally has 3 defensive lines that are all top end caliber, and so it's the depth. Not one of the players averaged over 30 snaps a game. So you get really good players that get to play really hard because they're not playing that often. And it's a problem. They've got 4 edge players that they can rotate and they all do different things. They've got the best nickel in the country and Mike Sainristil still. They've got an All-American corner and Will Johnson. Like the defense is legitimate. I'm really fascinated to see how they handle Milroe's ability to extend the play and use his legs.